There's a new kid in town, and his name is Catastrophism. And this is the son of the geological sciences. A lot of hundreds of scientists have been doing work, publishing papers for the last 100 years, basically. And some people have compiled these papers and come up with a more correct version of the history of the Earth. And they call it catastrophism, and it turns out there are reoccurring catastrophes on planet Earth that basically take out the civilization and leave a ragtag fleet of remnants to rebuild. And the cycles are every 80 years there's a war, and we have one coming up now, next year, which will be 2023. Every 400 years there's the closest approach of Saturn, which usually brings bad weather, disease, famine, and change of governments. Every 2,000 years there's an event which is caused by planetary alignments messing with the gravity and the surface of the Earth. And every 10,000 years is the end of civilization event, and that's caused by the alignment of the four outer gas giants lining up and their gravity rippling the surface of the Earth, causing tsunamis and earthquakes to a level where it's not an extinction level event, but it takes out the civilization. And that's about to occur every fifth time in the 2,000-year cycles. They're compounded on top of this 10,000-year cycle. And in the current version of this, we're going to have the four outer gas giants, closest approach of Saturn, and the 80 years war. It's been 80 years since it was World War II, so it's all going to come literally crashing down next year. And what I want to mention is the inevitability of this, because it's caused by planetary alignments. And this is from a field of science called the theory of celestial influence, which is a book by Rodney Collins Smith where he details a lot of this. And the other part of the story is in a book called In Search of the Miraculous by Peter Ouspensky, where he's interviewing George Gurdjieff, and he asks, can war be stopped? And every time Gurdjieff was asked this, he said no. This time he said yes, and he explained that war is caused by planetary alignments making humanity go crazy, to put it in simple terms. There's a lot of stress that we're unaware of. A small version would be the full moon, and the asylums, they find it very hard to control the patients because the gravity of the moon is affecting them. And the planetary alignments are that times 1,000 or 2,000. If you take a little picture of the Earth and a picture of Saturn, you can imagine that this huge thing can affect the little thing, like magnets. So what's coming up is inevitable. The perturbations of the surface of the planet are inevitable. There'll be earthquakes, volcanism, tsunamis from the earthquakes. The tsunamis could be 12,000 feet high, going 900 miles an hour. for example, and darkened skies, no crops, nothing for the animals to eat. Animals die, no crops. Humans die, except for the few who prepared are luckily far inland, near the equator. So this thing coming out of Russia, based on logic, we have this huge country with fantastic resources with no seaports, and they're trying to grab this very rich area in another country which has seaports and an unbelievable amount of food and resources. So it seems like the style of humans is we need something, so let's just go steal it from someone else instead of doing our own work or communicating. This is an attempt at, it's all about money, world domination. We control the oil, we control the food, we can make out like bandits. China's trying to get Taiwan because they have the best chip manufacturing facilities in the world, and they have the rare earth metals underneath the Uyghurs, who are Muslims. So they're trying to get rid of the Uyghurs so they can strip mine for the rare earth metals and make chips in Taiwan and batteries for electric cars. So it's about money, not about idealism. And I've been cancelled. This is the intermittent power shortages they talk about. So the in the treatise in Search of the Miraculous, I think it's page 127, but you look it up in the index, Can War Be Stopped? It's just a page and a half. When people feel this celestial influence coming through them, they get antsy and they need a release. And their release is usually, Bridges says, they begin to break heads. You're bad, we have to like kill you. That's the standard response to this. And that's what's happening psychologically to humans. The Russians came out to conquer a new area, and the people there go, like hell you will, and it's unethical by modern standards, so everyone is helping the people who have been attacked. But it's inevitable. And just as a side note, Taiwan is ancient China. Mainland China was taken over by a communist philosophy, and they were unable to get across that small bit of ocean and capture Taiwan. The ancient Chinese army set themselves up on Taiwan, and they're actually the legitimate government of China still, until they are conquered by war. And that's why the United States still keeps supporting them, because they already had an agreement with the older non-communist China. So that's about money. Let's get the machinery to make chips, and let's get the raw resources under the Uyghurs, and then we'll dominate in the chip area and in the electric car battery business. So all this is coming to a head. If not, the date I have is October 23rd, 2023. It's about a year out. 24, 25. A lot of people have estimates that the disaster, the war, will last till then, and the aftermath till 2030, and then the cleanup. But it's going to be a lot worse than people think. It's not going to be just there's a war and oh my God, we're on shortages. We already are experiencing food shortages from bad weather, food production plants being burned down, refineries being burned down, rail strikes. There will be very sparse croppage. Next year, we're eating this year's harvest, and that'll be gone, say, by Christmas, and there will be very little food around, and then supposedly planting in the spring, and that'll take several months for food to grow, but then we have bad weather, farms being out of business, high cost of fertilizer, high cost of natural gas, high cost of gasoline. The whole thing's gonna fall down. It is a house of cards, and it was set up very well. And there's the human machinations, which will bring down the house of cards. On top of that is the planetary alignments will bring down the house of cards. And this is no small thing. So I make these videos to bring out facts that are not generally known, and people are going to get blindsided by this. And don't let it be you. You need to prep by getting away from the coastline. You need to prep by saving up to 2 years worth of food, even if it's just beans and rice. And water purification. And this is called when shit hits the fan. That will wake up all the people who are not believing this might happen, and they're going to panic and start buying everything, the water, the food, the generators, the tents, firearms, trailers, mobile homes, you name it. So the reach on this information is very small. Basically preaching to the converted, but it's better to do what I can than to do nothing. I just fold in on myself, trying to be safe. It's very hard, almost impossible, to get people who would say, oh, this is just a conspiracy theory, or people with their head up their butt or in the sand. So don't waste too much energy on that. You cannot undo that. I've been trying to undo that for 50 years. Got nowhere. So protect yourself and prepare for a disaster, which is no food, no water, no gas, no heat, no place to go, roving gangs of marauders, no police, no fire, no ambulance. And if you can, on top of that, maybe try to stockpile some charities. I'm going to start buying blankets and from secondhand stores. I throw them in the back of this van, and when I see somebody who's living in their car, I'm going to give them a blanket. And then I've been looking at recipes on YouTube, the 1932 recipes from the Depression, how to feed 8 people for 68 cents a dish. So I'm thinking of getting a freezer and starting to make meals like that and put it in little packages, frozen, and taking those around when it gets worse than it is now. And just say, here's a blanket, here's a meal. And when you have nothing, a little bit of charity goes a long way. And the thing that makes a person crazy is just plain hunger. Your blood sugar drops, and in the middle of a disaster, you're not thinking straight about ethics and cooperation. So if you can spread this message around, there's lots of people doing this. Randall Carlson is the man in catastrophism. This stuff's been verified by geologists going back through the layers of the dirt, sand, and rocks, and realizing this is cyclic. It's part of planet Earth. It's part of the game here. Every 10,000 years we get wiped out. That's why we have no history. That's why we don't know how the Egyptians were able to cut rock like that. They had technology, which is completely gone. This is the why. So prepare for this, and it's going to happen now, unfortunately. This is the 2,000 years since we were warned that there would be end times, and end times is now. We were born 2,000 years ago. This is the 2,000-year cycle within the 10,000-year cycle. This is the big one. And if you notice, I don't know what you're looking at for news, but earthquake activity is happening all over the world, a little worse than before. There was always earthquakes every day. They're just everywhere. Now suddenly they're becoming big enough to notice, where highways are being broken. And they're right now mostly in Japan and the Philippines. And that will soon spread to the Ring of Fire, which is all the way down the coast of the Americas. And the wind blows from west to east in the Americas, which will bring volcanic ash across the countries, which will kill the sunshine, which will disallow the crops, when the animals will have nothing to eat and they'll die. And when we have no animals and crops, we'll die. With good planning, this could probably be mitigated. This is why the elites are building bunkers. This is why the ancient peoples built bunkers. Geologists and historians have found many, many underground cities or diggings with up 10, 20,000 people capability. Now, why did they do this, and how did they do this? It's because they knew the catastrophe was coming. They went underground. Maybe 2 years of absolute disaster, then come back out and reestablish them. But even though we have the media that could tell everyone, the people in charge have decided not to tell us because they think we'll panic. We'll buy everything up and then stop going to work, because what's the use? And the economy will just stop. And they want to milk it to the very end, which is, it's not personal, it's just business.